The Sahara, a sea of sand so vast it could swallow the entire United States and still have room to spare. 3.5 million square miles of unforgiving desert. The sun blazes above 104 degrees Fahrenheit by day, then drops to near freezing by night. Rainfall? Barely 2 inches a year in its central regions. And when the sky does break, the water vanishes almost instantly, devoured by winds, burned away by heat, or lost to an endless thirst in the soil. The Sahara is not static. It moves, not like a storm that comes and goes, but like a creeping tide. At its southern edge lies the Sahel, a fragile borderland stretching 600 miles wide from the Atlantic to the Red Sea. Here, rainfall is barely enough to sustain life. 4 inches in the worst years, 27 in the best. For centuries, families have tried to wrestle harvests from this thin strip of earth. They've raised livestock, planted millet, sorghum, and groundnuts. But the land is losing the fight. Every year, the Sahel sacrifices another 50 to 70,000 acres of farmland. What was once pasture hardens into cracked crust. What once grew crops turns to dust. And here's the cruel truth. 90% of people in these regions depend on that very land for survival. When the soil dies, so do their chances. The Sahara is not just a desert. It is an advancing empire. And it swallows villages whole. Faced with a desert that moves like an army, Africa dreamed of building a wall. Not of stone, but of life. The idea was audacious. Plant a strip of trees nearly 4,800 miles long and 9 miles wide across the entire continent. From Senegal on the Atlantic coast to Djibouti on the Red Sea. A living barricade, green against gold, that would halt the desert's advance and bring soil back from the dead. They called it the Great Green Wall. The goals were breathtaking. Restore 247 million acres of degraded land, lock in enough carbon to change global climate equations, create jobs, food, and water security for millions of people in some of the world's harshest lands. It was more than a project. It was a continent's survival plan. But like many great dreams, reality was harsher. By the end of 2023, just 18% of the target had been achieved. Ethiopia had made progress, restoring 37 million acres. Nigeria followed with 12 million. But in Chad and Mali, where resources were thinner and the Sahara's push was stronger, the targets fell short. The wall was breaking before it was even built.
It wasn't just lack of money. Though the Green Wall struggled with chronic underfunding and poor coordination, the deeper problem was nature itself. The traditional model was simple: plant billions of seedlings. But in a place where rain fails, seedlings are like paper soldiers on a battlefield. Droughts scorched them. Windstorms ripped them out by the roots. Even when they survived the climate, they often didn't survive people. For villagers living on the edge of hunger, a young tree wasn't part of a forest. It was firewood. Without irrigation, without trained caretakers, without community buy-in, the wall's green promise began to wither. So the plan had to change. Instead of just planting trees, architects of the Great Green Wall expanded the vision. They revived ancient rainwater harvesting systems. They planted food-bearing trees in agroforestry systems so locals could benefit directly. They protected areas where natural regrowth was still possible. It worked better. By July 2024, the project had restored 74 million acres, a third of the way to the goal. But still, the Sahara advanced. And still, the wall was not enough. The desert would not be stopped by trees alone. Then came an idea so strange it sounded like madness. If trees couldn't hold the Sahara back, maybe tortoises could. Not just any tortoise. The African spurred tortoise, also called the sulcata, one of the largest tortoises on Earth, weighing up to 260 pounds, capable of living over a century, and, most importantly, built by evolution for deserts. At first glance, they look too slow, too harmless, too small to matter. But look closer, and you see nature's hidden engineers. Sulcatas are diggers. Their front legs are armored with thick scales, their claws sharp like shovels. They dig not little holes, but burrows up to 100 feet long and 50 feet deep. In the Sahel, where the soil surface hardens into a lifeless crust, those burrows change everything. They let oxygen seep below ground. They capture rainwater that would otherwise wash away. They create underground reservoirs where moisture lingers long after the storm passes. Each tortoise is a living plow, breaking open dead ground, letting life creep back in. And that's only the beginning. Sulcatas are strict vegetarians. They graze relentlessly, devouring grasses, leaves, and weeds. And in the process, they eat seeds. Their slow digestion carries those seeds miles away. When the seeds finally emerge, they come coated in nutrient-rich fertilizer, perfectly packaged to sprout. Where a tortoise goes, grass follows. Shrubs follow. Life follows. Their droppings, loaded with nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, are nature's soil recipe. And then there are the burrows again. Those vast underground shelters don't just protect tortoises from the sun. They become homes for other creatures, lizards, insects, even small mammals, species that would otherwise die in the open. A tortoise doesn't just survive the desert, it reshapes it. It engineers tiny oases, little green sanctuaries against the Sahara's golden tide. Since 2006, conservationists in Senegal have been reintroducing sulcatas into the Furlough Biosphere Reserve. 80% survived. They bred. And slowly, scientists began to notice something remarkable. Patches of land around tortoise burrows were coming back to life. The tortoise was not just saving itself, it was saving the soil. The tortoise is not alone. Across the Sahel, other animals are being drafted into the war against the desert. Take the scimitar-horned oryx. Graceful, white-coated antelopes with long curved horns, once roaming across the edge of the Sahara. They could survive months without water, drawing moisture from desert plants, regulating body temperature like living machines. Then came rifles, hunting, and livestock competition. By the late 20th century, the oryx was declared extinct in the wild. But extinction was not the end. In 2016, the first herd of 25 captive-bred oryx was flown into Chad from breeding centers in Abu Dhabi and Europe. Released with GPS collars, monitored carefully, they took their first steps into freedom. By December, the first calf was born, the first wild oryx calf in over 20 years. By 2023, the herd had grown to more than 600 animals. In 2024, their status shifted from extinct in the wild to at risk. Why does this matter for soil? Because oryx are movers. Their hooves break the crust, creating little depressions that trap water. Their grazing controls overgrowth. Their droppings fertilize. Their movement spreads seeds. Each herd is a natural restoration team. Then there's the North African ostrich, once the tallest bird on the planet, roaming the Sahel in great flocks. Overhunted for their meat and eggs, they vanished too. Now, reintroduction programs in Chad and Niger are bringing them back. Fitted with GPS trackers, released in stages, their survival rate exceeds 85%. Ostriches dig shallow pits while foraging, which, like the oryx, capture water. Their manure, rich in nutrients, turns bare soil fertile. Their very footsteps create microhabitats where grasses and shrubs can sprout. One by one, the Sahara's lost creatures are returning, and with them, they bring something more powerful than trees alone: the ability to reshape soil, restore biodiversity, and hold the desert back. The Great Green Wall was never really about trees. It was about life. And life is diverse. It comes with roots, hooves, feathers, shells. In Senegal, tortoises carve burrows that breathe oxygen into dead soil. In Chad, oryx herds trample crusts and spread grass seeds. In Niger, ostriches scatter fertility in their wake. Behind them stand networks of people, African farmers, international scientists, European zoos, even Monaco's Royal Foundation, all collaborating in one of the most ambitious ecological projects in human history. But this is not charity. It is survival. Because every acre the Sahara swallows is an acre taken from people who already live on the edge of hunger. Every mile the desert advances forces migration, conflict, and loss. The wall is more than a line of trees. It is a mosaic of solutions: rainwater harvesting, agroforestry, natural regeneration, animal rewilding, a patchwork shield against the desert. And it's working. Slowly, unevenly, imperfectly, but working. Stand on the edge of the Sahel at sunset, and you'll see the battle lines. To the north, sand, endless and lifeless. To the south, villages, crops, and fragile hope. The desert is not stopping, but neither are the people. Neither are the tortoises, or the oryx, or the ostriches. If the Sahara is an empire of sand, then the Great Green Wall is a rebellion of roots, shells, and hooves. And here's the most astonishing truth. Sometimes the fate of millions of acres rests not on machines or governments or even forests, but on a single tortoise, slowly dragging its shell across the sand, leaving behind a trail of life. If the smallest of creatures can hold back the largest desert on Earth, maybe restoration isn't impossible after all. Maybe it's just getting started.